Hey, how are we doing, guys? Great here, and today we have got our week 5 team builder of the CGT. We're going up against Mountaih and his immunity idols, last season's champion, also somebody we've never beaten. He beat us in pack semi-finals and also 6-0'd us in the last season of CGT in week 9. At that point, I think we were eliminated from playoff contention, barring some miracle. I think we had to 6-0 him to be able to make it into playoffs, but yeah, we got smacked by a Celesteela. Fortunately, he doesn't have that again this time, so maybe we'll have better luck, but at the same time, his team's terrifying, so potentially not. Yeah, make sure to go check him out. His link will be down in the description below, as well as all the other coaches for the CGT. He's a fantastic player, and generally really likable guy, makes great content, and very kind of laid back, I guess, would be the best way of describing it. Like, he doesn't take himself super seriously, but at the same time he battles super seriously and is incredibly good and has won everything. So yeah, make sure to check him out. Like if you enjoyed the content, and subscribe so you didn't miss out on the rest of the CGT season. And with that out of the way, let's get into the teams. So his team, as you guys see on the right hand side, is Rillaboom, Weavile, Latias, Nidoqueen, Arcanine, Blastoise, Blissey, Diancie, Hitmonlee, Rotom and Doublade. This is a very scary team. I think it has one less Mon than us, so he spent more but got less Mons. His main offensive threats are definitely those top 4, Rillaboom, Weavile, Latias and Nidoqueen. They're all just going to be very difficult for me to deal with. Also Blastoise looks like it could potentially be a really good offensive threat. Barring Tentacruel, I don't really have particularly great switch-ins to it. And if it shell smashes, then that could be a real problem for me. But plan is to not allow it to do that. I think it may have to come defensively in this game, just because it's a better check to a lot of my physical offense than things like Arcanine. Diancie is also pretty good against my physical offense, barring Excadrill. Again, it could be Berry, so it will be able to take a hit and body press in return. Diancie's matchup is pretty decent, good against a lot of my team. Rock is a bit of a problem type for me, but at the same time I do have at least a few answers to that, albeit I don't think we're bringing too many to this game. Hitmonlee offensively could be a big issue actually, but at the same time we do have things like Boswell that should be able to check it. Reuniclus and Torn should also be able to take a hit, even if it gets to +1 with a bulk up set or a curse white herb set. Rotom is somewhat decent against my team, outside of maybe Excadrill, which I'd probably have to run Rock Slide for Rotom to be able to hit. It doesn't necessarily hit too much of my team. Thundy is fine against it, Tyranitar is fine, Reuniclus is fine. So I don't think we'll see Rotom, but did get brought in a mock. Shout out to Zane and Sully for mocks this week. Definitely very helpful with the mocks this week. I, after last week's game, was not going to mock again because I just got so pissed off with my moods being all over the place at the moment. And I decided, you know what, actually I want to try and get mocks in just because it's Mountaih and I want to try and take as much advantage as I can. Yeah, anyway, Doublade is the last Mon, which could certainly turn up to this game. I don't think it's his best Mon. I don't think it would fit in his top 6 against me, but there's certainly a chance that he could bring it as something of a like low tier threat, I guess, that I wouldn't have prepped too much for. But at the same time, we do have good physically defensive Mons to deal with it. Not necessarily the entire team is able to deal with it, but at least we do have like some things that can deal with it. So yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that the likeliness is that I think Weavile definitely comes and Nidoqueen definitely comes. Blastoise I'm pretty sure in some capacity, and Diancie I think in some capacity. Rillaboom is pretty good, but at the same time Tornadus plus Boswell kind of makes it struggle in this matchup. Plus the outsped by Sinrace won't OHKO with Banded. However, I do see like a bulk up set potentially being scary for me if he sets up with gets to like +2 acrobatics. Because I think Grassy Seed bulk up or Grassy Seed SD is his best way of breaking through Boswell. So if I see that, then I know it's going to be scary. It could also be Cobra Berry to deal with Tornadus. It could be Ocker to deal with Cinderace. But honestly, Rillaboom I think potentially goes on the bench, but at the same time it's Rillaboom. You've got to prep for it. You've got to plan for it. And yeah, so The other thing that I think is quite likely is Arcanine. Arcanine checks Sinrace all day without much an issue. At the same time, it doesn't really do a whole lot to the rest of my team. Tornadus and Tyranitar, and I guess to an extent Reuniclus as well, are all able to do a fairly good job of checking it. If it's offensive, then obviously they don't do that job quite so well, but at the same time, we cross that bridge when we come to it. Looking at Hitmonlee potentially coming, I think the bottom two won't. I don't think Blissey comes to this game either. Blissey just kind of gets smacked around by Boswell, Cinderace, Excadrill, Tyranitar. Even Reuniclus just kind of sets up on it. Tornadus can just taunt it. So I think Blissey hasn't got a great matchup. So I think we'll see some kind of combination of Rillaboom, Weavile, Latias, Nidoqueen, Arcanine, Blastoise, Diancie, if I had to guess. And there's a strong chance that either Weavile or Rillaboom will have some kind of flying coverage to hit Boswell, because Boswell was a threat to his team. But yeah, let's get into our team. And first up we have got Tornadus. Let me just change my... I forgot to go back to my team builder to be able to see it. I hope you didn't see my mouse then, you might have done. Apologies if you did. Yeah, first up we have got Tornadus. It is somewhat physically defensive this week. Enough speed to outspeed max speed Arcanine, if I remember rightly. Let me just double check it. As max speed Arcanine. Doesn't outspeed Latias, but it will be able to take a hit from Latias. From memory, it's able to take 2 Scarf Timid Draco Meteors. This is also basically our primary Rillaboom switch in. Rillaboom, because of the set that I said, with the Grassy Seed and the Bulk Up or the Swords Dance, I don't want to risk my best Weavile check in Boswell not being able to take that hit. So, yeah, this is effectively going to always switch it in, no matter what, on Rillaboom. It might get knocked off. If we see knockoff and we see it's banded, I'd be a little bit less worried about switching in my Boswell, which, spoilers, will bring Boswell. Who'd have thought against Rillaboom, Weavile that I'll bring Boswell? Yeah, if it knocks us off, a little bit unfortunate. It will be a little bit more difficult for it to do its job, but at the same time, its job is mainly just to check Rillaboom. As long as it can do that somewhat consistently, then that's the main thing. Hurricane hits a lot of this team for neutral damage. Let me just... if I do this, there we go, that's going to be best, because now I can see both my team and his team, and describe things better. Yeah, Hurricane hits most of his team for neutral. The only things that's not hitting is Diancie and Deblade. Deblade we can knock off, Diancie we can knock off in U-turn. We can also taunt it, because we should be able to take a hit, albeit we don't really want to. We have better switch-ins to Diancie than our Tornadus here, so... yeah, Hurricane hits a lot of things neutrally. Knockoff is just to knock off items. It's fairly standard taunt, honestly. U-turn for pivoting, and taunt is just to prevent things like maybe Arcanine Morning Sun, potential Blastoise Toxic, and also Blissey from doing pretty much anything, especially T-Waving. T-Waving will be annoying. It could also prevent a slower Latias from being able to set up, and it can also potentially at some point be able to prevent things like Rotom Fan from clicking Will-O-Wisp, the Hitmonlee from being able to click Curse. So yeah, it's got quite a few uses. This is also knockoff. After a knockoff, we are able to take 2 modest max non-life orb boosted Nidoqueen Sludge Waves. Ice Beam will still do it Chaos, but we have something else on our team that is mainly going to be our Nidoqueen answer. So if we can knock it off, it helps our Nidoqueen answer from being able to deal with it much better. Next up, we have got our Tyranitar with one second, Stone Edge, Crunch, High Horsepower, and Stealth Rock. Choice banded this week with Adamant Nature. We're pretty quick. This is to creep a Boswell. So if anything is trying to go quicker than that, then we should be able to outspeed it. Things I'm thinking may potentially run that creep are going to be Nidoqueen and Blastoise, I think, are the main 2. Let me just, yeah, those 2 are the main ones. Not going to outspeed Rillaboom, but again, we're not staying in ever, I don't think, on Rillaboom with this mon. So yeah, this thing is just here to break, effectively. I can pivot in quite effectively against things like potentially the Rotom Fan if it comes, with Tornadus U-turning into it. Arcanine and Blastoise, I can pretty easily just pivot into this and click a button, because it does help our endgame Wincon, which we'll get to later. But just breaking things down on his team is going to make such a difference. Stone Edge 2-hit KOs Diancie. It 2-hit KOs everything, effectively, other than Nidoqueen. and Deblade. We've got Crunch for those two. High Horsepower is a guaranteed Oko, if I remember rightly, on max HP Nidoqueen. It's just max HP. So yeah, and then Stealth Rock is there because Stealth Rock could be helpful, but at the same time I will only set up rocks if I really feel like it's a necessary play. If I need that chip to secure my endgame, then I'll click Stealth Rock, because I think really I just want to get as much damage off as possible with this thing. And clicking Stone Edge or clicking Crunch is always going to be my best way of doing it. His Dark Resists are Diancie and Weavile, and one of those is not a Dark Resist. Same with Hitmonlee. Technically it's Dark Resist, but it's not going to take Crunch well at all. And yeah, Diancie, I do have switch-ins too, so or a switch-in, I guess. My team's a little bit weak to Diancie, I'll be completely honest, but we should be able to deal with it, I hope. And yeah, we'll move on to the next one. We have got our Boswell with Drain Punch, Ice Punch, Toxic, and Roost. Physically defensive with Rocky Helmet. Just kind of very standard Boswell. Being able to take on like Banded Rillaboom, it's able to take on Weavile pretty much at all times. The only way that I think Weavile is able to break through it is if it gets up to +4 and it's adamant, something along those lines with Triple Axle, then it's able to Oko me if it gets all 3. There's a lot of conditions there for him to be able to do it, so I do feel quite comfortable in this being my switch-in. I'm probably going to be proven wrong, and I'm probably going to get Toxic on this Boswell, and not be able to check it, but we'll see. We'll see when we get into the game what he wants to do, but it's a very obvious switch-in. It's still going to be my switch-in. Yeah, and he doesn't really switch into this too well. The combination of Drain Punch and Ice Punch is really only kind of resisted by things like Arcanine, Diancie, I guess, to an extent. Blastoise can switch in as well, so Toxic is there for those, just to be able to whistle him down over time. Plus the Sand Chip from Tyranitar, if we ever get to that point where Sand Chip is up and we have Boswell in, we're going to be able to get quite a bit of chip damage going, and hopefully we'll be able to pull off the end game that we want. Next up we have got our Thunderous. Honestly, this thing is here as a secondary breaker. I just wanted a special breaker as well. It's Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, Sludge Wave, and Psychic with boots. Modest nature with enough speed, I believe, to outspeed. Let me just check 152. Trying to find it. It outspeeds or speed ties with max speed Hitmonlee, so that might be a mistake. But hopefully it won't matter. I don't think that it's going to be like speed creeping this in particular. I don't think he would even try to, so it should outspeed Hitmonlee. Maybe I should have been a little quicker for any speed creeps of Excadrill, but if we're slower than something, we're slower than something. That's my bad. Thunderbolt, Psychic, Sludge Wave really hits everything on this team. The only thing that's not hitting particularly hard is going to be the Latias and arguably the Diancie as well. We are going to do a lot to Nidoqueen if that's his answer to it. Volt Switch over U-turn just because I can Psychic the Nidoqueen if I want to. Play aggressively with this. Honestly, I just kind of click buttons with this to an extent. I think I not necessarily lead with it and just sack it in exchange for damage, but pretty much that. I don't think I need this for my endgame. If I do, then I do. It could potentially, if I'm able to get rid of Weavile, be able to clean up pretty effectively, but getting rid of Weavile is kind of a big ask. I just got to keep an eye on it, and if Weavile goes down, then maybe my win con becomes this more so than my actual win con. But we'll see. Next up we've got Reuniclus, once again, Life Orb, Magic Guard with Psyshock, Shadow Ball, Energy Ball, and Recover. Mixed defensive this week to try and take on as many things as it possibly can. It's basically a blanket switch into a lot of mons on his team, be it Diancie, Arcanine, Blastoise, Latias. It can switch into Nidoqueen. It's my primary switch in fact, to Nidoqueen. It can switch into Blissey, it can switch into Hitmonlee, it can... Oh, I don't want to switch in on Hitmonlee particularly because knockoff. Switches into Rotom, and it doesn't switch in particularly well to Deblade, but is able to at least do some damage to Deblade with Shadow Ball. Psyshock hits a lot of things on this team, again the things it doesn't hit. Weavile, which doesn't take hits very well at all. Latias, we've got the Shadow Ball, and also the Deblade, which we've got Shadow Ball. Energy Ball is just there for a Shell Smash Blastoise. I want to make sure that I do as much damage as possible to it, just to prevent me getting swept by it. This mon should be able to take 2. Depending on whether he's modest or timid, or jolly or adamant. We'll again cross that bridge when we come to it, because if it's got physical moves, then Boswell kind of becomes an answer to it, but this will be our primary switch in. because it's able to do the most out of all my team to deal with Blastoise. And it also it deals with Nidoqueen. It's got a lot of weight on its shoulders, but it should be able to hopefully retain enough health to be able to do that. I needed the Life Orb just for damage. It wasn't doing quite enough to Latias for Shadow Ball, wasn't doing quite enough to Blastoise with Energy Ball, and it certainly wasn't doing enough to a bulky Nidoqueen with Psyshock, and that's one of the main things that I need it for. So yeah, that's going to be our Reuniclus this week. And last up we have got our Wincon, hopefully, but also a pivot this week. Sinrace with the boots, Pyro Ball, Gunk Shot, U-Turn, and Bulk Up. It's kind of a combination of it can be a pivot for me mid-game as well as an end-game win condition. It's able to take hits from Weavile, especially with a Bulk Up. It's not going to die. It's able to take hit from Rillaboom. It's able to take hit from Lati. It can honestly take hits from basically everything on this team, barring stuff like Arcanine, Nidoqueen, and Blastoise. Blastoise we obviously need to make sure is worn down enough that I'm able to knock it out. And same with Arcanine. If Arcanine is chipped down, then we should be alright. Diancie is the other mon on this team that realistically is going to prevent me from being able to click Bulk Up and just kind of clicking buttons. What I can potentially set up on is a little bit unsure, maybe Rillaboom and Weavile. Possibly, I guess, on Rotom Fan, because it won't do enough damage. Blissey possibly as well. But yeah, if I get a Bulk Up late game, then this should be in pretty good condition to win. If I don't, then I can use this as a pivot, and hopefully I can find a Wincon in, be it Thunderous or Tornadus later on. Maybe even Reuniclus, if it's able to tank hits long enough to be able to clean up, then it can be there. I guess maybe late game Tyranitar, if he sacks the wrong things, can possibly clean up as well, but we'll see. That's going to be the team for this week. Mountaih is going to be a terrifying opponent to face. He always is. Very, very good battler, so if we lose this one, honestly, there's no shame. There's no shame in losing to Mountaih. He is the champion of everything, and yeah, we're in for a good game. At least I hope I'll give him a good game. If you are enjoying the content, please leave a like, subscribe, so you don't miss out on the rest of the CGT season. Make sure to go check out Mountaih's links down from below. And until the next one, have a great day, guys.